Tonight, two key donors have threatened to withdraw billions of shillings earmarked for Kenya following the latest COVID-19 scandal linked to KEMSA. At the heart of this is millions of shillings meant to combat COVID-19, but unfortunately, tonight quarantining in the pockets of a few. On Pundits Night tonight, we speak to three individuals, our residential analyst Herman Manyora, Mheshimiwa Honorable Nelson Koech, Belgut Member of Parliament, and Pamela Odhiambo, who is Migori Woman Rep. Good evening, and thank you all for making time for us tonight on TV 47. All right, Herman, let me start with you. Is fighting corruption in Kenya an exercise in futility? Is it theatrics? Can it be a war that is really a war?
There are those like me who believe if we want to get rid of corruption to a level that is acceptable internationally, nobody has ever managed to clear corruption, then it must really be a very serious fight and a very serious war. The first thing that ought to be done in the fight against corruption is to convince the public that is indeed there is a fight. How do you do that? By speedily prosecuting people and winning a case or two, and the Kenyans seeing people. Pardon?
Go ahead, Haman.
You can't hear me?
Go ahead, Haman.
What I'm saying is, you see, you cannot fight this war without the public. The public must be with you. And there's no better way to carry the public with you than to convince them through conviction. We have had many corruption cases, and none except the one of this MP Waluke has been concluded. Kenyans want to see some little blood being shed. Kenyans want to see a few individuals going behind bars. That is the only way you can convince Kenyans, indeed, there is a fight. But all these things that are like merry-go-round, the revolving doors at ACC, hardly convince people in this country that the government is serious about the war against corruption. But like I said at the beginning, yes, indeed, you can count 1, 2, 3 that this government has done that other previous governments did not do.
All right, and we'll come to that, Herman, a little bit later. In terms of
fighting corruption, yeah.
We'll come to that a little bit later in this discussion. Let me bring in Migori Woman Representative Pamela Odhiambo to the discussion. When we talk of the war on corruption, is it really a war on corruption, or is it a war of words targeted towards corruption?
Sorry, my host, I'm not able to hear you very well, but I think corruption has turned out to be some kind of song that Kenyans have listened to over so many years. And I think to some extent, the methodology that are used even to look at the issues of corruption or the means of knowing that there is some corrupt deal going somewhere is more ambiguous, and sometimes the method of investigation, or whoever is authorized to investigate, goes round in circles until people really don't know what is not happening and where it is. The people of Kenya, like I think I had colleagues saying they want to see people back. Unfortunately, sometimes it's so who, when somebody is mentioned in corrupt cases and are held responsible, they come out again in numbers to defend and say they are being targeted. So I think Kenyans ought to be serious to learn to allow each individual or a group to take responsibility for their actions. It is a song that has been hard enough.
Pamela, let me interject you at that point, if you can hear me, Pamela. Herman earlier on talked about Kenyans wanting to really see convictions. You also talk of Kenyans and their faith in as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. Kenyans are on one edge of this. If this is a double-edged sword, what are those in authorities doing? What are their leaders doing?
I'm sorry, you are cutting and I can't get your questions wholly, but I'm responding to your view that is corruption something that we are serious about, or is it just another war of words? To some extent, I thought I said yes. Kenyans, including me, are very serious about corruption issues, and we would want these people who are corrupt brought to book. But on the other hand, sometimes the same Kenyans want to defend people that are mentioned in corrupt deals. So with that is some sort of vicious cycle that sometimes appears like war words or seriousness. But I think the truth is Kenyans want to see some serious actions taken against anybody who is mentioned in a corrupt deal.
All right, let me bring in Nelson Koech, a Belgut lawmaker, to the discussion. On September 5th, 2011, Kenya changed the name of what was the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, then KACC, to the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. More than changing the name, is there 7 years later, in fact 9 years rather later, is there any satisfaction that has come along with this change of name?
Thank you very much. It has absolutely nothing to do with the change of name or structure. There has to be a goodwill. You will realize that as independent institutions, they draw an independent budget, extremely huge budget now from the mainstream government, and they are supposed to they should not even be pushed. It should be a case of tightening the grip and fighting corruption, and not just words. But strangely, you realize that from 10 years ago, nothing really much has changed other than the name. These institutions have continued to raid on extremely flimsy corruption cases, and like my friend Haman did say, they don't go for the big people. And you must have seen that. There is really no a goodwill per se or to go for the big fish, which is the biggest problem that we have at the moment.
You say let me interject you at that point. You say there is no goodwill. From who is this goodwill lacking, Mheshimiwa?
There's generally no goodwill. I mean, you pick on someone and it becomes an issue of the community. It becomes an issue of, it becomes a fight between different people, and people come out to protect certain individuals. And you'll find that a certain quota that is not in the system at that moment are the ones who are chased. And then again, it becomes a circle again and again and again. So it is just used, in my own opinion, the way I look at it, looking at events that have unfolded for the last few years, it is just used as a political tool to hunt down on enemies that you don't agree, but not a genuine pursuit of criminals who plunder resources in a country. So unless we make these institutions independent and genuinely so to fight corruption, then it will just be a name. And we will always be singing about independent institutions and pumping in so much money, but in return, you will not go far. So unless we make sure that institutions that have been mandated to fight corruption do exactly that, then it is going to be very difficult. And let me tell you, the moment, and forget about these small cases, I had him, did mention my colleague on the Baluke. I still find that extremely, I don't want to speak about it because it's a matter that is still under appeal. But those are just going for different places. There are people who have stolen in this country. There are people who have taken billions in this country. Those are the people that we want the government and all these other bodies to go for, because that is exactly where it will start hurting. Look at Somalia, for instance, today. A minister in a Minister of Health has been put to 18 years for stealing PPEs. We want to see a replica of that punishment in this country. That is the only thing
Nelson,
serve a lesson.
given that the Constitution guarantees these institutions that are supposed to be fighting corruption some level of independence, some even having the word independence in their name, are you casting doubt or pointing finger at their independence and as far as fighting graft is concerned?
That is laughable. There is nothing like independence. I mean, it is very clear. I mean, we live in this country. There is nothing like independence. Independence means that you can go for anyone and put them in. It is not a particular section of individuals that are supposed to be only prosecuted. Independence means that if today, for instance, someone was mentioned that they have stolen PPEs from the sick people of this country and people are being ravaged by COVID, they should have gone there and arrested those people. Those are big names. Why don't they go for that? Have you forgotten that we had mercury the other day that was laced in our sugar? Has anyone been put to court? So independence comes with being independent, not just a name.
All right, Pamela, your colleague, a lawmaker, says independence should be more than a name. What then is stopping these institutions from being independent?
I think in the past we have all questioned the independence of the institutions that are there in Kenya to deal with the issues of corruption. However, I think in the recent past we have seen, especially the DCI's office, move to name names and pursue them. And recently, I remember, we had a member of parliament where we charged in court and then fined and jailed. And I think, as at now, I want to say that we are making steps towards doing the right thing.
Pamela,
Pamela,
that is one case referring to Waluke. That is not a good answer sheet to give for Kenya's corruption scandals as an answer.
No. I'm not saying it's a good answer or a bad answer, but I'm only citing a case that at least we have seen. And so what I'm saying is that if our bodies, the DCI's office, the anti-corruption authority agencies, speed up their actions of investigation and bringing everybody who has a corrupt case behind their name to book. This is what Kenyans are demanding. And I think that's what we are saying even tonight, that where there is an alarm, like recently we saw in the media that there was some case of corrupt deals or something that looked fraudulent in the acquisition of things that are associated with the COVID expenditure that we have seen, then we need to get the evidence. You know, the fact that somebody shouts thief, thief, does not mean that that person should just be picked and jailed. There must be evidence. And that is why we are saying the investigation speed must be enhanced. I think that is my position. I'm not saying that we have done well in bringing these big names to the bank. We have made a step, and that step can be enhanced, and we get answers to these many problems that we are talking about.
All right, Herman, steps made, as Pamela says, if at all you agree with her. Nonetheless, are these too slow steps to make?
Well, like I've said before, you know you can do all manner of things. Let me tell you the problem is with fighting corruption in this country. It has to do with us treating corruption as something very special. When I've always argued corruption is nothing more than theft. If we agreed corruption was theft, and we have enough laws to try thieves, and it's a simple matter of prosecution, then we should be able to go to the point straight, which is arrest people, take them to court, try them within the shortest time possible, and this time must be enshrined in our laws. We must say, for example, that all corruption cases will be prosecuted within, say, 6 months. And then let's conclude as simple cases of theft. You and I have had people, their own admission, NYS, that money was put in my account. Did you supply anything? No. Did you tender for anything? No. So, is the money still there? No, I have used it. Such a simple case that can be tried by a first-year law student. Why can't we process these cases without making, we make corruption look like something very high up there in the skies, yet it is just simple theft. So the problem here is really not very difficult. The problem is us having the will. I agree with my friend Nelson Koech. If there was a will, and you cannot fight corruption, let's be very honest with ourselves, unless there is a will at the top. There must be the will at the top, and then we go for those people. Knowing very well, and I want to say this without any fear, knowing very well, as a country and as a people, one, corruption is destroying us. It's going to finish this country. If you can see us, people are saying if it is true, you even steal from a money meant to save people's lives, and you are already a billionaire. You want extra billions that you will never even finish. If we don't take care, corruption will kill this country. But the most important thing which I want to say today is that corruption is dangerous. It is dangerous because it can destroy a country in this manner. When the people get to a point when they can take it no more. And we are almost getting there. I've said this repeatedly. We are pushing people to doing what we call citizen impeachment. Let us not push people. Let's not create situations that can be ugly for the country, Because you do things so badly, you steal without care. You steal from the most vulnerable in the most careless and carefree manner that you are likely to provoke anger in the people. And that is a dangerous
Haman, in your answer and response to the question I asked, you paint a picture of this being possible, a fight that is that can be done. You paint of a simple process, but that seemingly is not the case, Haman, isn't it? Primarily and partly because of the people involved in so many of these scandals.
Let me tell you another problem. There are two problems here. One is at the top. The top must be willing to fight corruption. And the top is not the president. The top is the top.
And where is that top? Who is composed of that top, Haman?
Top is the leadership. The leadership of a country is not the president. The second problem that makes it very difficult is we are all thieves in this country. What we lack, you and I, Abubakar, is an opportunity. So we have a country
how can you prove that we are all thieves?
Still,
that's preposterous to make, isn't it, Haman?
We are in
you
a
can't
country
prove that we are all
where
thieves.
there are no values. There are something saying what we lack is a software of values. In other words, the people shouting thief, 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 if they had half an opportunity, they would steal. And that is again a very bad place for a country to be. For people to be where everybody does not steal merely because they have no opportunity. That's a very bad place. Other countries, they have their thieves. But those thieves are limited. A majority of the citizens in those countries have values. They would not touch a cent, even if there was nobody seeing it. We must push our country to a place where there will be thieves, yes. There will be our thieves, yes. But they will not be so overwhelming that everybody aspires. A study was done, Abu, what are you talking about? A study was done 2 years ago. It featured in one media house strongly. I think it was a Daily Nation or something like that. You can mention. And the young men, who did they say they were admiring? Who did young men say they wanted to be? And one question was posed to the young people. Do you care how you become rich? They say, I don't care in the least. Where we are. And this is a dangerous place for a country to be, where everybody admits that if they had half a chance, they would steal. They don't care. They just want to get where they want to get. That is what Abubakar I'm saying is not a good place to be as a country.
All right, let me bring Mheshimiwa Koech to the discussion. Is it a case of corruption inherently being within us as a society then, as Haman would want to paint it as?
It's unfortunate that we will have to view it that way, but this is my take. I mean, corruption is like Haman was saying. People want to get rich very quickly, and people don't value hard work. For instance, you find someone driving a big car, and when you ask, it is nothing to do with education. It is nothing to having worked hard. but it is just because, you knew someone who could help you secure public tender in government, and it changes the mindset of individuals, and slowly that is where we are sliding to. But we are not a society. No one is born a thief. No one is born, a criminal. All of us are born pure people, but it is only that the habits that we see every day that inculcate in ourselves, and soon we find that everyone wants to do all these things that gives you quick back. And you realize that what happens, for instance, you are suffering, you're living in some ramshack somewhere in the slums, yet you can still engage in crime. You'll be glorified and continue living in this country peacefully, and even being rewarded by those who are in government. So that is what is actually becoming a problem with people. And that is now the only way is to give punitive, extremely punitive penalties on individuals who engage on such vices. And the only way to do that, like my friend did say there, is to go to the top. And let us not be apologists of thieves in this country. That is the biggest problem that we have. That today someone can tell, and we come out and say, oh no, we have to have a legislature that investigates, I don't know what, we have to listen to this, we have to get facts right. That is a lie. A theft is a theft. For instance, today, Abu Bakr, I'll tell you something. That really is hard to. And I've seen even the demonstration that we've aired in the media house about what is going on with the PPEs. You see, when people come out and start to defend and say, oh no, maybe it was a stolen, oh no, maybe the media where you, Abu Bakr, is working is sensationalizing things that probably are being blown out of proportion, then that is now where we start to defeat the fight against corruption. Because what you're simply saying is casting doubt on cases that are extremely obvious. Let us have a system that does not in any way reward crime. Let us have a system that punishes crime and punishes it very punitively. That is the only time that the young people, the generation behind us, because I hope and I truly pray that my generation can at least do something to make sure that going forward 5 or 10 years ahead of us, we will have a country that people detest corruption and value hard work. So that the generation that comes 10 years behind me will emulate what we'll have done from there. And that is exactly what we must do. We must punish corruption.
You allude to the KEMSA scandal, which I'm holding for now. We'll come to that discussion later in this broadcast. Nonetheless, let me bring back Pamela to the discussion. I have a quote of President Uhuru Kenyatta on what he said on the 1st of June 2019. He said, and I quote, "The war against corruption is a war we are undertaking with no joy, but one that will continue with no reluctance. I will not stop until the house we inherited from our forefathers has been swept clean." What will it take to sweep that house, quote unquote, clean, Pamela, in your own view?
In my own view, I'm about to tell you what it is that I think President Uhuru Kenyatta should just wake up and do. But before then, allow me to politely disagree with my colleague Haman there, that all Kenyans are thieves. I know there are people in Kenya who have never stolen and they are not intending to steal anything. And I think it is good to appreciate them as well. Secondly, I agree with them that the value system of our country has fallen to the dogs. And so people worship money, people worship wealth, and it doesn't matter how somebody gets that wealthy. And I think that is something that we need.
Pamela, on the values. Now, Pamela, before you even answer the question I asked, just on the question of values, is it the values among people, as you say, or the values among the politicians, the political elite?
Now, listen to me carefully. When you look at corruption, before I tell you what I think Uhuru Kenyatta can do, let me tell you, these corrupt cases, not all of them are peddled by the politicians. In fact, I was about to request you to allow me to change the direction of this talk, because all these things we are saying and repeating, we have said them before. Even me, I'm on record having condemned strongly some of the things that are happening in our country. However, there is a bit that has never been brought to book. The process, especially our procurement processes, the accounting processes, the auditing systems. I think these are the things that are actually covering up corruption in our country. So most of the time we rush to talk and look at the politician because the politician always talk. But the real perpetrators of corruption in our government institutions are people who are never even seen during any rally or any daylight. And that is an area that we really need to shift our attention to, and we need to question our processes. Because, for example, the cancer that we are about to talk about, you find that at a shop I can buy a cup at 100 shillings, a very nice, but this same cup acquired through government processes of procurement comes into the company or the organization or the government office at 10,000 Kenya shillings. And as long as the processes were followed and there was a committee that sat down, this case is okay. And that's why I'm saying just pointing fingers at the politician is not a solution. Having said that, allow me to comment on what is my take as to what my President Uhuru Kenyatta should be able to do following the quote that you have just said. I think if I was President Uhuru Kenyatta, I would have acted a little mad, just one day acting mad, to the extent that anybody, even if it is my wife or husband, who is mentioned on the case of corruption, let that one go in and pay and bear the brunt of their action. If he exuded that kind of madness, even just 1 week, you will see a difference, because either these people who are corrupt will allude to kill him, or it will go down on record that he has decided to make good his word and his promise to Kenya.
But Pamela, just to be fair, Pamela, just to be fair to the president, he has done so. He fired his National Treasury boss, Henry Rotich. He tabled a list of shame in Parliament, which included 3 names of the then CSs, Charity Ngilu, Michael Kamau, Felix Koskei. He tabled a list that had then 10 governors, inclusive of the now Treasury CS. One would suppose he has done that, but that seemingly is not working.
Now, I'm thanking you for that fairness to my president, and I know he has done that. But you see, what Kenyans are demanding for is to see these people punished, jailed, and if possible, the money that they stole recovered and brought back to the economy to support the services of this country, which some of them have not faced. We have never seen Rotich being brought to court. We've never seen him jailed. We've never known why he was sacked and all those kind of things. So to some extent, yes, I told you even at the onset of my speech, I told you that I appreciate the little steps that we have made towards doing the right thing with corruption. But then there is this idea that Kenyans are not yet satisfied with the action that has been taken there.
All right, Pamela Odhiambo, Migori Woman Rep, thank you for those thoughts. You're watching Pundits Night with me, Abu Bakr Abdullahi. Time for us to take a short break. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Share with us your thoughts as a viewer on 22047. We'll be back after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Pundits Night with me, Abu Bakr Abdullahi. Remember, as always, you can be part of this discussion. The hashtag to use is Pundits Night. Send us a message on 22047. We'll be able to sample some of your views. Just a reminder of who our guests are tonight. Our residential analyst, Herman Manyora. Pamela Odhiambo is the Migori Woman Rep. And Honorable Koech Nelson, Belgut lawmaker. Let's get back to the discussion, and let me start with Herman. Herman, given then that we see charges being presented in courts of law with little in as far as the translation of these charges to conviction is concerned, what confidence should Kenyans have then that this war may bear fruits?
How, somebody who is involved in corruption is not like somebody who has committed a suspected murderer, Why wouldn't the DCI gather sufficient evidence before arresting somebody? Then once they arrest that they present that person before the courts through DPP. Without sufficient evidence even to begin prosecution, it gets people to think and to begin wondering aloud, could this really be the fight? Could this really be fight against corruption, or is it something else like political? Because you've seen so many of the arrests really are cases where the DPP and his team, especially the DCI, were not ready for it. And then when they go before the courts, you can see the shenanigans going on. You can see what's going on before the court. You don't even need to be a lawyer to know that these people were not ready for this case. And even in some instances, the courts have said as much. Why do you bring people before us? Like in the instance of that director of KPA. And then there are many others really. That where the courts are not happy that people are being brought before them, and the prosecution is asking for people to be detained in terms of being remanded, even being denied bail. Why? We want to conduct investigations. They will interfere with investigations. Why didn't you do that before you arrested someone? So even before we accuse we begin with the DCI, and then the DPP, and at some point, of course, the courts will also be blamed. Because the manner in which they also process these cases, it really leaves Kenyans wondering, shall we ever slay this dragon of corruption? It makes people, like I've said, really kind of lose hope. Which again, I want to repeat, is not a good state for a country to be in, where the citizens feel there is nothing, they are on their own, money meant for health will be stolen, money meant for education will be stolen, they will continue anguishing in poverty as the rich continue becoming richer at their expense. I want to repeat here, it's not a good state for a country to be in.
All right, Herman, the very essence of this discussion tonight is backed up by the latest of scandals that, to have hit KEMSA, which is the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority. Let me bring in Koech to this discussion. The World Health Organization last week equated corruption, described corruption in the procurement of COVID-19 personal protective equipment as unacceptable, and in fact likened it to murder. Since then, we saw a scandal at KEMSA in which there are political firewires in as far as this scandal is concerned. The DP has distanced himself from the theft of the billions, terming the opposition and ODM, whether in government or in opposition, not in pleasant words, terming them as the lords of corruption. ODM has hit back at Ruto, terming his statements as juvenile and improper, quote, statement. This is a scandal that risks the lives of Kenyans, but what we are seeing is politicians, leading politicians, pointing fingers at each other rather than pointing fingers one-sided to this scandal.
Abubakar, I'll tell you that I'm extremely mad with what is happening in Kemsa. I will hate to imagine that, we have lost money to individuals at this time of a pandemic, that we have health workers who are on the front line trying as much as possible to see that they reverse people who have been, the graph and the people who have been infected with COVID. Health workers and frontline workers who do not have kits, PPEs. We have nurses and doctors now who've gone for months without pay. And then there are a few individuals who have walked into Kemsa and walked out with billions. I mean, that is murder. Least to say that is, then again, you find the politicians that have come out, and I've seen a section from the side of my friend Pamela. They are trying to outnumber each other on defending what is going on in Kemsa. I saw my friend Onesmus Mulcomen today tweeted that ODM now is fighting to defend, Kemsa. It is who is louder. Jubilee, not a single member of Jubilee Party has spoken of whether there has been theft or not in Kemsa. But NASA has come out very strongly, particularly ODM, to say, no, nothing has happened. Let us subject it to an audit. I mean, what a fallacy. We must be very honest with ourselves that there are individuals who have been mentioned and are on the other side who have been mentioned extensively by independent investigation agencies, not directly DCI or DPP, and there are individuals who have been implicated in this matter. And it is up to DCI and ESCC to make sure that all these people are brought to book. It is except, and like I mentioned earlier during this debate, that I must laud a country like Somalia, a country that is still very young in democracy, today has shown the world that stealing money that is meant for frontline workers and is meant to reverse, the COVID effect means 18 years or more in terms of jail, and it didn't take long.
Nelson, you say ODM, in your own words, in your own view, is defending and coming to the defense. Is that first a right terminology to use?
Yes, they have become apologists of the people who have been mentioned in this camp.
I'll ask Pamela whether her party is defending them, but nonetheless, when the second in command, the deputy president says, and I quote, "At least for once it won't be possible to be blamed for what someone said started in Wuhan as a virus, landed in Italy as a pandemic, and now in Kenya as a multi-billion shilling corruption enterprise." If ODM is defending, in your own view, the deputy president is distancing himself from it, is it?
Deputy president is not distancing himself. All he is saying is that they have used him for so far too long as a punchbag for corruption. It is high time that the country and the people who are actually corrupt are unmasked. ODM, all they needed was to get into government, and they are unleashing exactly what they are. And that is exactly what the deputy president was saying, that, this time at least, no one will mention me in any scam, because they have used him for way too long as a punchbag for any corruption activity that happens in government.
All right. Let me bring in Pamela and ask her what you have, Nelson, put forward as a statement. Why is your party, in the view of Belgut lawmaker, defending those who have been mentioned in this case?
Abubakar, sorry, my voice is a bit hoarse today because I preached myself mad yesterday. But I'm laughing not because I am happy, but for lack of a better thing to do, as what my colleague is saying here, I decided to laugh. Because I don't think ODM has defended anyone. Let me tell you, Abubakar, the first instance of this issue of corruption, I think even myself, I met it on the daily papers. Okay? Having met it in the daily papers, even the writers of that paper, I'm sure, constitutionally, they don't have a mandate to just arrest somebody and pick them and take them to court. And so we are talking about the DCI. And that's why I said earlier, I can hear all these colleagues actually saying what I said earlier in the different way. You see, my friend Haman has just acknowledged that people have been arraigned in court and then there was lack of evidence. And I already pointed out that most of the time why there is lack of evidence or significant evidence to pin down someone is because that value system of ours has made us to pay more attention and value and worship the processes that are involved in this whole act, so that even if what the real cause of what we are doing is not very nice, like what we are told in KEMSA, then because they follow
Pamela, we have talked of the charges, and the conviction. I want an answer for the question I asked. Is your party defending those who have been mentioned?
ODM is not defending anyone. I think even what I read today from the statement of my ODM leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, he was saying that he's not defending anyone. He's not ready to defend, even if it is his relative or relatives of his party members, but he wants that evidence to be brought out through that audit, through that investigation.
Pamela, Odinga's statement today is the second statement the party has made, which comes after the Secretary General gave a statement, I believe, on Sunday in reaction to this scandal, which begs the question, and I suppose the root cause of this is ODM as a party for the longest time has been known to use a certain language when it comes to condemning corruption. The tone of the language that has been used in the description of this case seemingly is not the case, which begs again the question, why change the tone?
What I read, excuse me, what I read, the way I understood all this case you are citing, as I talk to you now, I'm clear in my mind. I see no defense of anyone in that statement, because I'm getting disappointed, Abubakar, that we take an important issue and now we start defending parties and individuals. Like when he's talking about the DP saying that for once he's not going to be mentioned. Is he celebrating? You know, these are the issues that we need to be aligned. There is no way every time a very important issue is coming up that is affecting Kenyans, then we align to rally behind somebody. And this is why I told you that the case of corruption is so ambiguous that when one erupts, we start accusing fingers and praising others, and then we mark everything. We cannot objectively follow an issue to a logical end. And I think this is one character that must stop in Kenya. Whether the DP is involved this time round or not, whether anybody is involved, let us get what happened and what is happening there. Why did they do what they are accused of having done? And that can only come out when an investigation is done. I think this is what we are saying. So we cannot rush. And even this, my colleague, the MP of Belgut, today if somebody said he stole the CDF, he would want the evidence. He would not just want to be taken to court. That is the truth. So let us remove DP from this, let us remove Raila from this and ODM and face the issue of corruption.
All right, I understand we are out of time. Nonetheless, Herman, is this also a case that is getting a political life on its own as the cases and the scandals that we have previously seen?
Of course, like all others, this is about politics now. You see, what the DP is saying is also very interesting, if it was not laughable. You know, really, all these happenings at KEMSA is a government body agency. And really, the DP is the second in command of the country. So he cannot be seen to, like Pamela is saying, celebrating that this time around it is not him. He should be at the forefront with the president in ensuring the thieves are arrested. On the side of ODM, they must also know perception is king in politics and in public affairs. What Sifuna said, and indeed Raila is only doing damage control, was actually, to be honest with ourselves, it was bad. Because ODM has been associated with the pointing out theft, with the pointing out ills. When they pointed out about Eurobond, they didn't wait for audit. When they pointed out about all these other thefts, NYS, they didn't ask for audit first. They must know that perception, and this time round they are being perceived to be defending thefts merely because, for some reason, whether it's right, true or not, I don't know, but for some reason, the key suspects being mentioned would seem to be closer to Jubilee A, where the others are, than Jubilee B, where Ruto is. And you know, since ODM is in a deal, a political deal with Jubilee A, then they are seen and perceived to be defending the thieves. This is simple. It is public. I mean, it's about perception. So I think then, because of that, this thing will take a political dimension, which again, like we have said, is wrong. Like Pamela is saying, this is not something to laugh about. This is serious. The money we are talking about from KEMSA is money meant to save our doctors who are serving in dangerous environment. Our doctors need to be protected, our nurses. It is that money that is said to be stolen. And we can use the word theft because even WHO has said it. So it is not a laughing matter. It is not a matter over which the DP can celebrate that is not him. It's not a matter over which Raila can begin to talk about audit and processes.
But Haman, you will understand that given from
condemn and
Haman, you will understand from previous record and statements in which the DP was linked to scandals that not necessarily were proven in a court of law or any evidence adduced to that extent. He may have had a liberty to distance himself, at least publicly.
You know, anybody would say what the DP has said. Now you see, you always say it is me. Anybody. The DP is not anybody. The DP is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. What has happened at KEMSA is evil. It's been called murder by no less than WHO. It is bad. It's bringing shame to this country. It is putting our doctors in danger. It is putting other Kenyans in danger. It is not something over which you can celebrate when you are the Deputy President. And I'm saying it's not something over which Sifuna and now Raila Odinga can begin talking of processes, begin talking of audit. They have never done that before. So we are saying, let's stop the politics. Let's stop celebrating because it's somebody else. Let's stop being seen as if we are defending theft at KEMSA. Not Raila, not to Ruto, not to Uhuru, not anybody, not Mutai. We must all condemn it, and we must all demand as Kenyans that those thieves must be brought before the book. They must face the law. Because we cannot allow ourselves to be the laughing stock of the whole world.
And talking of laughing stock, Haman, and I understand again we are out of time. USAID and Global Fund to donors have hinted at wanting to stop funds, and as far as the funding of some of their programs is concerned, raising queries of accountability. As we conclude in 30 seconds, Pamela, what kind of a picture then does this paint for the country? In 30 seconds.
I am not happy about what's happening. I believe no one in their right senses are happy about what is happening in our country, and therefore it is a time that Kenyans need to stand up and do a check. I'm calling for a check of the systems. Our procurement systems are rotten and dirty, and we need to cleanse them up. That is my take on this issue.
All right, Mheshimiwa Nelson Koech, in 30 seconds as well.
It's important that as a country we reevaluate our gains in terms of fighting corruption. We must look at where we made the mistake and correct so that we can have a great future. And all the leaders who've been mentioning corruption, whether it's KEMSA or any other corruption, must be brought to book.
All right, Belgut lawmaker Nelson Koech, Migori woman representative Pamela Odhiambo, and Herman Manyora, our residential analyst. Thank you for making time for us tonight on Pundits Night.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Pundits Night. On behalf of the entire team that made this production possible, bye for now. Enjoy the rest of our programs. And tonight of all nights, thanks for watching.
Landlord nimekucheki, lakini kitu moja, sishiki tenje kabla unifanye caretaker. Niko highly qualified and certified kuwa caretaker. Najua silipangi rent. Kwa hivyo, najua njaro zote za wasee wanaka